Hi guys, and welcome back to Revit for Residential. In our last video, we went ahead and we set up the elevations or level lines for a project. And now we're going to go ahead and start to do the actual model. And I always have a way that I like to do my models. There's usually a certain method that I go by every single time. And that's usually start with the walls. Then I go and I put in my openings, which are my doors and my windows. Then I add my floor and any stairs that may need to be put in, and then start to build in my component pieces such as my furniture, my specialty equipment, my plumbing equipment, all of that type of stuff. So for this, we're going to start on our walls. And usually one of the first things that we need to do is make sure we have all the right wall assemblies. So I'm going to click on wall inside of my architecture ribbon. And inside of here, you'll see that, and I know a lot of people like to start with the generic walls. I don't, just simply because when you start with a generic wall and you're doing a new project, you may not, you'll have to probably put in the correct wall construction. And if you start with the wrong wall thickness, it throws off your dimensions. So I try to start with as close to what I'm probably going to use first. So I'm going to actually click on brick on metal stud. And the reason I clicked on that is because that's probably the easiest one to manipulate. And usually for a residential project, you're most likely going to use some type of wood stud, at least in the Northern American region. So or some type of light construction. So I'm going to click on edit type and I'm going to click on duplicate. I always duplicate my component pieces, my system families. I don't necessarily rename or get rid of unless I know for a fact that I'm not going to use it, because you never know when you have to go back and use this other piece. So instead of it being brick on metal stud, I'm going to take out the 2 because the number at the end indicates that you have more than one type of that type of wall assembly. And I'm going to take out the MTL and I'm going to put in WD for wood. After that, I'm going to click on OK. I'm next going to click on edit the structure. That's the first one underneath construction. I'm going to click on that and it's going to take me into the wall assembly. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my preview, and this is going to actually show me what the wall is made out of. So for the first thing I'm going to do, I already have brick in there. I'm going to keep my brick as it is. So if you understand how Revit works, Revit believes in the concept of gravity. And in other words, something cannot just float in space without having something to hold it up. In this particular case, that's what's going to go inside of the core boundary, or that is the structure of our wall. For us, it's a metal stud. Obviously, I want to change that to a wood stud. So I'm going to click where it says function, keep that as structure. Material, I'm going to click where it says metal stud, and then I'm going to click on the ellipse that's inside of that box. What it's then going to do is going to pull up my material library. Now, if this is the first time you pulled your material library up, and depending on the speed of your computer, it may be slower to do than others. I'm then going to, I could either scroll through here and look that way, or I could do it quickly and I could just type in stud. If I don't see a stud come up that I want to use, like for this it's metal, I could type in wood and it'll show me all the different ones. And a lot of times what I will use is softwood lumber for my studs. So I'm going to tell that okay. I'm then going to also make sure I change the thickness to a nominal dimension instead of the, or excuse me, an actual dimension instead of the nominal, which it would be 5. If I'm using a 6-inch stud, I'm going to use a 5.5-inch stud. And I put in the 0.5 because it's just faster to type in than a 1/2. I mean, it's potato, do it however you want. And then from there, I am going to tell it okay. And if I wanted to, I could also change my gypsum thickness to 5/8 of an inch versus 1/2. All just depends on what I want to do. Reason why that's kind of important though is if you look up top here, your total thickness is going to be the actual thickness, and it's also going to control your R value, because it's doing it based off of the materials that you're using inside of your wall and also your thermal mass. So just keep all of that in mind as you're deciding on what materials to use for your wall assembly. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click OK again because now my wall assembly is ready, it's named properly. And I can now start to draw my wall in. For the last little part of this, we're just going to do a rectangle for right now, and there's many ways that you could do it. I'm going to start in my top left corner, and I just want you to go around, and we're going to do a square. And there's a reason why I started over here, and I really don't care what size you put the square in, because I'll show you how to manipulate this later. And matter of fact, this isn't a square, it's a rectangle. So as long as you have 4 walls in there, we're good to go. And then we're going to go from there. So join me again for my next lesson when I show you how to manipulate this and how to make sure that your walls are oriented in the correct direction. Thanks.